Michael, a lot to get into here. Let's just start with those reports that President Trump has actually spoken with Russia's Putin. What does this signal to you in terms of any potential talks, any progress towards a potential peace deal between Russia and Ukraine?
Sure. Well, having worked for the world's biggest regional security organization, I can tell you, Carl, that discussions are better than no discussions. At least if they did in fact speak, that Mr. Trump probably got an indication from Mr. Putin of what he's going to demand in terms of any peace talks. Having said that, you can never take what Mr. Putin says or what Mr. Trump says for face value, for that matter. So we'll see how it plays out. But it may buy the Trump administration some time to formulate a new strategy ahead of the upcoming Munich Security Conference, when his vice president is going to meet with Mr. Zelensky of Ukraine. And hopefully that will trigger a process where things begin to happen towards some kind of talks after such a long freeze.
Yeah, Michael, what can we expect there, do you think, in terms of that meeting with Zelensky? Because we've heard this idea floated as well about a potential exchange of mineral rights in Ukraine for U.S. military support. Is that something you think might be on the table?
Most likely. Like the leader of Japan, who was recently in the White House, Mr. Zelensky has done some homework and has got a sense of how transactional Mr. Trump is. You're not going to get anything out of him for nothing. So what Mr. Zelensky has wisely put on the table is all the rare earth minerals that Ukraine has. The problem there is, number one, is that a lot of those are in Russian-occupied territory. So a deal will have to be made, a side deal with Mr. Putin for the U.S. to get access to them. And secondly, from my research today, is it's going to take a long, long time for the United States to monetize any of this. So it's not something that they'll benefit from immediately. For example, taking over the Panama Canal or Greenland, it'll be a long-term thing, but a very savvy strategy on behalf of the Ukrainians, I must say.
In the meantime, something happening really right now are these moves to dismantle USAID, one of the biggest foreign aid funders in the world. Ukraine had been a big recipient of some of that money and aid, hadn't it? How is this affecting the country?
Yeah, well, we just had a meeting a couple of days ago of a board that I'm a volunteer member of, a recipient of USAID, and one of our contacts from Washington described it as an arson attack on USAID, meaning that it is not expected to come back anytime soon. And as a kind of side thought on this, because we have to look at the whole global picture being so interconnected as we are, is that I think that Mr. Trump likes to speak, for example, of Gaza as one big demolition site. Well, what him and his team are doing to USAID and all of the thousands of programs it has around the world is creating a demolition site of the humanitarian landscape. So what's happening here in Ukraine is there are layoffs going on as we speak, and crucial organizations being cut off at the knees. And I'm talking, for example, organizations that transport transformers donated by the West to Ukraine to repair the power stations here that have been bombed by the Russians. They have been, for example, USAID money repairing port infrastructure on the Danube River in order that the US and other countries can continue receiving Ukrainian grain. And then East Europe Foundation, which I'm most familiar with, they do things like creating bomb shelters in schools so kids can continue going to school. And the other thing they do is mine awareness training so that lives are saved. And that's on top of many, many other things that are funded by USAID. So impact is going to be absolutely enormous.
And Michael, you're there in Ukraine. You've been speaking with people, of course. What are they telling you? What's the atmosphere like now as we approach the 3-year mark in this conflict?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of thinking because I have been here for 3 years for the most part. And, Carl, it's very, very sad. It almost brings tears to my eyes because I talk to a lot of people, especially in my adopted city of Odessa, which to me is a real symbol of irrepressible resilience. People there are very savvy, business-minded, they work hard. And a lot of key people from the business community have left. And now we're stepping down to a new phase where they're thinking of selling their properties that they've owned for generations, moving their parents. And to me, that indicates a new phase. And if I can, I think that the business community here, including the many foreign companies that are active here, have to get on the same page as civil society and start pushing back against the Russians with much more force, and realizing that there isn't going to be much business here if people keep on leaving, if the Russian missile strikes continue. So there's very little time to lose when we're talking about this.